Luckily for us today in America, we are getting an object lesson on how being good on the cheap through the ambition of ideologues and fools and the sacrifice of other fools and conscripts far from home is immoral and costs way more than advertised for far less benefit. Instead of being admired and venerated, we are feared and hated by the rest of the world. Instead of gaining wealth and freedom, we see our own lives and livelihoods made debt-bound and fruitless. We wonder why. And often, we don't understand our own culpability in the misery of tyranny. Etienne de la Boétie, a French lawyer and philosopher in the middle 1500s, shared his thoughts on this problem in his work, The Discourse of Voluntary Servitude. De la Boétie wondered, and I quote, "What strange phenomenon is this? What name shall we give it? What is the nature of this misfortune? What vice is it, or rather what degradation? To see an endless multitude of people not merely obeying but driven to servility, not ruled but tyrannized over." He goes on to describe the typical tyrant, and we recognize the type. And I quote, "The people suffer plundering, wantonness, cruelty, not from an army, not from a barbarian horde, on account of whom they must shed their blood and sacrifice their lives, but from a single man, not from a Hercules, nor from a Samson, but from a single little man. Too frequently, this same little man is the most cowardly and effeminate in the nation, a stranger to the powder of battle, and hesitant on the sands of the tournament." Unquote. To end the tyranny and the empire, to reverse the concentration of power, to stop the ambitious Leviathan, de la Boétie, at the age of 18 years, advised us simply, and I quote, "There is no need of fighting to overcome this single tyrant, for he is automatically defeated if the country refuses consent to its own enslavement. It is not necessary to deprive him of anything, but simply to give him nothing. There is no need that the country make an effort to do anything for itself, provided it does nothing against itself. It is therefore the inhabitants themselves who do permit, or rather, bring about their own subjection, since by ceasing to submit, they would put an end to their own their own servitude. The people enslaves itself, cuts its own throat, when, having a choice between being vassals and being free men, it deserts its liberties and takes on the yoke, gives consent to its own misery." De la Boétie. We are speaking today of the collapse of the American empire, and it is collapsing precisely because so many of us are already doing what de la Boétie advises, giving the tyrant nothing, ceasing to submit to his authority, living as free men. Simply knowing that this is what is happening by us, around us, and throughout the country, and so too the rest of the world, is powerful. We need to recognize this fact, this reality in this moment. The Ron Paul banner, revolution, with the emphasis on the letters L-O-V-E, is in perfect concert with the way things really do change. The way we think about the collapse of empire is key to actually restoring a republic, and in recognizing the opportunities inherent in this collapse. If we see the American empire and its well-funded military machine grasping around the world deep into the heartland and into space as some massive physical entity, the collapse will indeed be a catastrophic event. Catastrophes, like the Black Plague in Europe, always bring new opportunities, often painfully forced through death, poverty, starvation, and crisis. But our American empire, this economic and militaristic dominatrix, is less a physical entity than an idea we voluntarily embrace. And even those of us who dedicate ourselves to targeting the empire can, by our very obsession, overstate our empire's inherent abilities and power. The empire we speak of and bemoan, and indeed from which we suffer economically and morally, is little more than a veneer. The empire has no clothes, we know the fable well. It is also true that the American empire itself is hollow, a movie set with authentic-looking building fronts, but nothing behind them. The currency of our empire, whether fiat money or military effectiveness, is likewise not believable and therefore not valued. The American empire rests entirely on our belief in it. Take away that faith and we shed the empire. The collapse of empire is really the act by each one of us of rising up from our knees and brushing off the dust. Thus, what are the opportunities as we rise up in freedom? How do we help our families, neighbors, friends, and those in our network to rise up in freedom? I'd like to discuss 3 simple things that we can do to leverage, to speed, and perhaps to ease the process of returning to republicanism. The first is cultivating a certain quality of mind. If we wish to be self-governed politically, we must first be self-governed individually. To be self-governed is to live our lives as we wish, in complete concert with our deeply held values, boldly, every day. To live this way, we must be educated, logical, and morally brave. All qualities of mind. We must move ourselves, our children and grandchildren, friends and neighbors continually in this direction. Mark Twain once said, "I have never let my schooling interfere with my education." We know that these qualities of mind are never the result of public schooling or public employment, but it is important to remember that they are certainly not precluded by it. Education is not just about knowing facts and gathering up information. Colin Murphy, former Atlantic Monthly editor and writer, wrote a book recently. He studied the similarities between Rome and the United States. He speaks of a fatal parochialism of Roman citizens, quote, "a lack of interest in the outside world, even among the elites." As a result, the Romans, government, military, and people, were often taken by surprise. Think about that. Many of us who are libertarian or anarcho-capitalist or part of the anti-interventionist right or left, we got there by thinking and reading, listening and observing. And I don't think a single one of us hasn't stumbled upon some surprising bit of perfect wisdom from older and other cultures. We may have started with the Bible, but beyond that we discovered that governing dilemmas, issues of human liberty and human slavery, human choices have been debated and examined by the brightest men and women for centuries. We cherish the founders, especially the anti-federalists, for their fierce devotion to liberty and their passionate distrust of centralized political power. Yet they too based their understanding on those who went before. They were educated beyond the parochial, beyond narrow confines of a single country, a single era, a single religion, a single narrow philosophy, a single career specialty. The recent tell-all book by Scott McClellan depicts George W. Bush as intellectually uncurious and prone to self-deception. When the book came out a few weeks ago, the White House inadvertently confirmed its former spokesman by saying it was surprised and puzzled, claiming that this was not the Scott McClellan it knew. For those familiar with the history of Washington politics and this administration in particular, little that Scott McClellan is saying is new or surprising. When one knows nothing, everything is surprising, puzzling, a mystery. To promote the qualities of mind suitable for a free people, we should learn and keep learning, both classically and technologically. Not that long ago, I thought about iPods in a very parochial way. I thought they were for popular music and not really useful for me. Modern entertainment only. But iPods are for podcasts and lectures, movies, educational videos, documentaries, and for sharing, discussing, and creating new knowledge and new perspectives. Most things that innovators create within the capitalistic systems that reward and enable them are not end items at all, but stepping stones to more innovation, new ways of living, thinking, producing. Think about the internet. We probably all used it to get here, to prepare ourselves for the conference, to pay our bills. Some of us may be using it right now. Its predecessor, the first packet switching data transfer system, it was called ARPANET, later DARPANET, and it was created as a way for the Pentagon to maintain command and control over its missiles and bombers after a nuclear attack.